You're up.
Great.
We're not hearing you, Sean.
It's because I'm not talking.
Oh, okay.
It's almost done. Okay, now let's hope that stopped. Hi, my name's Sean Cordes. I am the instruction coordinator at Western Illinois Libraries. I'm an associate professor. My research interests are human-computer interacted and technology in teaching and learning. What we saw behind us, and probably not necessarily in the state that it was intended, was a video showing basically how we have moved from physical text and physical environments into the digital environment. And all of those different things, Google searches, YouTube, the way the metadata is created for people, the fact that students are creating these things as well as professionals, all add another layer into the teaching and learning process. Now, before I get started, I kind of wanted to ask a question of everybody. How many people think blended learning is about BYOD? Raise your hand. Blended learning and BYOD, do they go together? Yeah. What about flipped learning and BYOD? What about flipped learning and blended learning? Flipped classrooms. Is it blended learning? Yeah. What about using computers in the classroom with the teacher present? Is that blended learning? Yep. So how many people use these things in their classroom right now or in your school? Yep. Point is that there's a lot of different types of blended learning, different approaches that you can take, and it can get confusing. But what I want to talk to you about today is how to put some of these things in perspective, use some of the definitions that kind of get blended together when we talk about blended learning, and also some of the ways that we can put these into practice in a measured way that allows us to control outcomes without things getting out of control. So I have some slides here I'm going to run through. First of all, there's some trends in blended learning. I mean, why is this important at all? Teachers, technologists, coordinators, we all have enough to do dealing with the technologies and methods and teaching strategies and learning theories that we're already using. But there are some reasons why we need to move forward and keep these things into consideration about how we integrate digital technology in the classroom. 53% of public schools right now in 2009 and 2010, and probably more now, have high school students that are in distance ed courses currently, okay, as well as their traditional physical classrooms. Up to 2008, undergraduates enrolled in at least one distance ed class, and that had gone up 8% to 20%. And frankly, 2008 is the stone age of the internet. So things are changing, okay? And we really have to pay attention to how we adapt to these changes. Further, the U.S. Department of Ed in 2009 found that students took all of their classes online performed better than those taking the same course in a face-to-face environment. While online learning can be challenging, there are benefits to it, and we'll look at some of those today. Finally, when students get through high school, when they get through college, okay, then we want them to have jobs. And are these skills that we're giving them now, are they going to translate into the jobs and types of skills that we need them to be able to do? So one of the confusing parts about blended learning for me and for a lot of people are there's so many different models, okay? But in general, you can consider it that time and space are the two key factors. So you've got face-to-face and online, right? And blended learning can occur anytime in the teaching process. And that can be computers in the classroom with the instructor, computer work being assigned outside of class in the form of videos and exercises that need to be completed and then brought to the classroom. And a lot of times people will banter about the difference between how much online and how much face-to-face. And that, for practitioners, is really going to depend on you. You could look at blended learning as the MOOC in a very large scale, or blended learning as online tools that students are given assignments for in the classroom. The key is that these things are integrated and they complement each other. They go together. At the bottom line, all of this is going to be technology mediated in some way. Shouldn't be. We just make this screen go away because I'm not hearing anything from here. Is it still playing? Maybe we can mute it.
You have an error now up there on the screen.
Well, is the YouTube noise going away? Yeah, because there's going to be an error. There's nothing in there, but it's the only way I can figure out to turn the video off.
I don't hear anything.
Okay, good. Because somebody said that it was a distraction. Okay. I was hoping that it would give us a nice little YouTube backdrop there throughout the presentation. The screens only hold certain types of content. You can't put a single slide up there. You can put them other places, so we're working around it. This is my first time in Avaya, and I was locked out for 6 hours yesterday, so basically all of the fancy bells and whistles, you are my beta audience. At the bottom line, outside of technology or where blended learning happens or how much face-to-face interaction there is, okay, we're focused on critical thinking and problem solving, and most of all, taking action with learning, including taking action in developing and distributing content, reflecting on content and perspectives, using learning to foster social and emotional growth and collaboration, things that employers are going to want students to be able to have as soft skills when they get into the workplace. Now, to look at some of these models, I kind of want to show some of the differences and commonalities in them. If you look at the screen, I've got 3 models up here. The first model focuses on instruction and collaboration. You can see the blend of online and physical. There's synchronous and asynchronous components. And around these involve content and expertise. The second one focuses on some traditional things for blended learning, face-to-face, classroom style, virtual classroom, the idea that blended learning allows for self-paced and self-guided activity. And teachers serve as facilitators in coaching. And finally, the third model here focuses on tasks and activities and the support with instructions, teacher support, coaching, and a focus on content again. Now you notice this is kind of the only one that shows assessments. A lot of times when we're talking about blending pedagogy with technology, it can be difficult to decide what and how to assess. Okay, thanks for sending me that email. Basically, the reason I wanted to show that opening video is just because it shows us how things from the physical and digital have become blended. I've got another video, and I'll practice that tip when we show it in a minute when I get down the line here. So when you take all those blended learning ideas together, they look really clear when you put them in a nice, crisp graphic model. But in real life, it's more like this illustration in front of you now. All of these things are blended. They're kind of chaotic. They don't fit together in a simple pattern. They're nonlinear. There's sustainability issues that come up, okay, that need to be accounted for, and how well these things fit into your teaching philosophy in your institution. It ties into libraries and other resources. There's collaborative and active learning that gets blended here by students interacting with resources and instructors. The point is we look at the models, there's a lot of interpretations about what blended is, but in the end, it's going to come up for you, the instructor or the technologist, to develop these things together and find a way that works for you. A way that allows you to meet teacher needs, instructional needs, and technology needs. So even though it can be challenging to incorporate these things, and a lot has been said about not using tools for tools' sake, probably the biggest challenge I've had over the last few years doing this, there are benefits to using blended learning. Some of the ones that are statistically proven and that you'll find in research studies, it increases efficiency, better use of teacher-student time. It extends learning outside of the classroom period. There's many devices we can use now. Students' penetration for smartphones is getting greater. Still not all the way there yet, but you can have people work in groups with BYOD devices. A lot of the upcoming technology companies like Google are offering programs for schools. Self-paced learning is probably one of the greatest benefits because students can work if they're able to, and other students can get more instruction from the teacher. I threw technology and disambiguation in there because the more we work with different interfaces, the more we find they're similar, and the more we find differences that we can adapt to and have to adapt to. And part of this is using these tools. We're teaching people the lifelong skill of being able to adjust to different configurations, purposes, tool interfaces on the internet. One of the things that's been missing, I think, for a while in digitally focused instruction is data. And it's kind of a shame because data is highly collectible in the blended environment. Learning management systems, documents, blogs, surveys, all lend themselves to gathering quantitative and qualitative data. Finally, these things help address the Common Core digital standards for public schools, as well as the ISTE technology standards, ACRL and AASL information literacy standards, and the SCONAL standards in Europe about how people should use technology to make meaning out of information. Probably two of the most important things out of the dimensions of classroom and technology are that the social media that's available now for students and teachers helps bring new contributions and supplements the traditional scholarly channels we have of textbooks, handouts, and subject matter experts. A lot of value is generated through content students create, and we'll look at a number of examples of those here in a minute. It also allows students to critically evaluate each other's work, okay? And so we get a collective intelligence where the sum of everybody's input is greater than the parts. Now, some of the things to consider before attempting any type of blended learning is it appropriate for your discipline? It is in some disciplines more than others. The sciences have done a really good job implementing some types of things, simulations and other interactive things into the discipline. I know that in social sciences, sometimes it's not so easy, but I have seen great social studies lessons, history lessons, etc., from the social sciences integrated. So you have to figure how well it integrates with your discipline in the school that you're in. You need to have a focus on outcomes. I mean, assignments, the way assignments are processed in a blended environment, the dynamic is different, and some of the outcomes may be different than in a traditional lesson. And also, how we apply technology to learning to get these critical thinking benefits instead of just having people operate a tool. You should consider how the technologies you plan to use in the classroom fit with other technologies at your school. Can you put it in your learning management system or content management system? Will they connect? And I'll show a couple of ways to do that. Cost is always a factor, and probably, there's a lot of free and low-cost tools, but time is always an issue. Also, part of that time is going to be learning how to use these tools and walking through the assignments the same way your students would. And sometimes that works really well for the basic things, and there will always be things that you'll miss because it's hard to create the dynamic of student team learning and collaborative learning by yourself. And there's going to be training. There's going to be training issues. Sometimes we'll have to meet with faculty and staff across different subject areas or teaching experts that have done this before. And that's one of the reasons why conferences like this are such a great learning opportunity. When you want to start teaching blended, think of a small thing that you can start with that's going to work first, okay? And then think about how these things can spread out. How you can take this one thing, one small idea, and make it fit across your class. Learn how the technologies used enhance learning. EDUCAUSE is a great place to go find out these things about top learning tools and how they're used, including research studies. Always test drive the technologies. Test drive your technologies so that you can make sure that everything functions the way you want. An experience I had is I'd used Twitter for a while. I knew how hashtags worked. I had my students do a live tweet event, and we found some things out. One, you have to be very careful about your hashtags. If you put WIU, gold, purple, and gold, you will get back things from the LA Lakers. Sometimes you'll get things back from your self-created hashtags that you in no way intended and are probably not safe for the classroom, which happened before. The other thing we found is even if you tag everything correctly, Twitter censors what gets put to the top of lists. So not every student's thing immediately showed up with the hashtag of their group. But the way that you can cut down on these problems is to try it for yourself first. Provide clear instructions. I'll show you some of those things in a minute. We'll get into the real examples of ones I've used. Managing the environment is another big thing. Resources need to be accessible to students because you're not always there to show them where they are. Content management systems, learning management systems, your syllabus are all good places to highlight those things. And when some of these activities are going on, even if they're asynchronous, instructors should go back in and make sure that students were able to accomplish what they set out to do inside there and provide corrective feedback when they can. Finally, be patient. Things aren't going to work. Just like when I came in here and tried to run my video, couldn't get it to stop. It looked stopped on my screen. It looked stopped on the screen on stage that I was seeing, but people could still hear it. There's going to be those problems. And even when you practice a lot, and it does take practice, you'll run into issues. So be willing to fail and trip up. I think that that's probably one of the biggest concerns that instructors have and technologists have when implementing things. We're professionals. We're expected to be professionals. Students are the hardest critics I probably ever have, and it can be embarrassing when things don't work right. Okay, I want to talk for a few seconds about really what blended learning means to me outside of physical space, synchronous, asynchronous, Web 2.0, cloud technologies, okay? Number one, it's active. Good blended learning lessons make people responsible for learning the material and for developing the skills and having a positive attitude as they go through and solve problems, okay? So active learning is one theory where I think blended fits really well. Another one is action learning. More collaborative and people work and learn together, but there's a real life context. And this is extremely important when we're talking about developing hard and soft skills that people will use in the workplace. They need to be able to talk and listen. They need to be able to read and write and reflect on the meaning of those readings and writings using a number of different types of materials and configurations in the online environment. So what kind of form does this take? Well, some of the forms that I've used are collaborative learning, okay, in groups where groups make meaning and interact with information. Constructivist learning, where individuals solve problems and tackle issues individually using tools. Groups and individuals solving problems, including troubleshooting technology. And participatory learning, where people might be participating in an outside activity. For instance, creating a petition for the We the People government site, okay, and participating in democracy. So always doing something and always taking action and responsibility for it. So rich environments in active learning are in the classroom and the engagement between teacher and student. And they occur outside of the classroom. But the goal is to analyze and synthesize and evaluate class content and learning. So the lessons I design try to promote study and investigation in an authentic way. Encourage student growth and responsibility, and utilize interdisciplinary generative learning activities that help people think in the higher order. So here's one example. I did this a few years back. You can see the website link here at the bottom of the page. Let me get my laser pointer. And so the link's down here. This was an example of a constructivist learning project. Individual students took 6 different tools here. And you can see they're basically cloud-based tools and the library database. And they came up with a research problem. And they had to tie together and embed all of these different separate interfaces and feeds, RSS feeds, video media, into a single Google Site section that they created. And so, here, let me go back here. You can follow this link and go to it and check it out that I did on critical incident technique. Each time a student performed one of these activities and integrated it, they were asked to come up with 2 challenges that they had, either finding information, using a tool and embedding it, connecting an RSS feed, and from that, I got a series of 400 incidents, and I categorized those by standards, by the ISTE technology standards and by the ACRL information literacy standards, to kind of get an idea of where I needed to focus my instruction to the students and supplement that with what was online as far as help and assignment instructions. Similar to that, this one was a collaborative example where people worked in groups. They would go out and find web pages. In this case, the topic was the US budget at the time. And each of them would evaluate a website and leave annotations on the page, okay, about the authenticity, the currency, the focus, and how well it fit their topic. And from that, you've got a consolidation or a library, a team library of different web materials, PDFs, things from educational sites gathered together to make meaning about the budget situation from a number of perspectives. Another constructivist example, these were individual examples, very similar. Students used the free Animoto tool to create videos about social topics. Okay, this is one that we did individually. This is a really easy tool to use. It basically creates slideshows and short video clips, animates them, and lets you put commercial-free music in there. Students love doing this activity because it allows them to visually demonstrate to their peers how they feel about an issue. Going back to collaborative information, students took a case study that we had from the news, and it was an ethical situation about who was responsible for an accident. And we used the MindMeister tool, the free MindMeister tool, to create a collaborative mind map about crime and punishment and who was responsible in this issue. And you can see all of the students collaborated to generate a group meaning about the issue. And it's kind of nice to do it in a collaborative way because everything that everybody does is visible to each other in the class. So people tended to raise their standards about their comments and the things that they contributed because they know everybody else would be looking, not just the instructor. And I think it really helped them keep on track. Wow, I'm hearing a question, I think, but it's not very loud. Now, one of the other things that I've been trying to do is integrate different classrooms so they're interdisciplinary. So we integrate our information studies class with the anthropology and women's studies classes on campus to create public service announcements using their own devices. And basically, they take a research topic, do background information, and then create a public service announcement for the group, which is loaded into the cloud and housed on YouTube. And this is kind of where I was talking about that different technologies integrate. Okay, so I'm going to be brave here, and I'm going to try to play this one and see if you can get an idea of what it sounds like. And hopefully I'll get it to stop. Okay, I think that'll stop. That was a public service announcement that was created as a collaboration between an information science course, researching background information, and an environmental anthropology course to develop public service announcements. That was shot on a student device, on their camera phone, actually, and using royalty-free music available from the Digital Commons website. So the point is it doesn't have to be expensive, but there do have to be defined outcomes that are built into the final product so it can be assessed. Now, obviously, not all of the technical skills of the students are going to be similar, and they use different devices, and you can see that in the quality. But the point is all of them were able to take a topic and build a multimedia composition to reflect how they felt about it. So let me move down one here. So pretty quick. I'm glad the video worked. It's always tricky, and you can see if you want to experiment with blended learning, one opportunity would be to do something like this. We're just not quite sure always how it's going to turn out. Let's see. That was mine. Wow. Okay.
Yeah, let's go out tonight. Give me 10 minutes to fix my face and put on some makeup. I'll talk to you later. Bye. You wouldn't put chemicals like these on your face. Did you know that scientists...
Don't know why it does that. Stops and then starts up with no video. Okay. So part of the key, basically you're turning these students out in a lot of cases to work in groups, using communication tools that they may be familiar with on a personal level, but not necessarily how to apply them in the classroom. The other thing is a lot of the tools that you'll have at your school or university may not cover all the bases that you want to. We use a desire to learn learning platform. It allows me to manage classrooms and discussions really well, but for some things like collaboration, it doesn't do that. And so on this screen, you can see it in my honors course, I had a notes link. And this link on the notes went out to a Google Doc. Each week, a team was assigned to take notes about the class lecture using 4 different colors for 4 different team members, and those notes were kept up there for everybody's use in the class on a weekly basis. So there was a continuous thread of weekly discussion notes that people collaborated on. Then they were allowed to use these for exams in the finals. So this basically is what the notes look like. Teams rotated taking notes. It tied the learning management system together with a collaborative tool that people could access from the LMS or from outside in Google Docs if they weren't able to get into the LMS for some reason. And so you can see how the students took notes and color-coded them. They did this synchronously. This all happened at the same time, live in the classroom. They documented the lectures. So other students could spend their time listening and not having to take notes. Teams rotated. So everybody got the notes from every week, and there was kind of a motivation to make them really good notes because their other teammates would be and classmates would be looking at them. The other way that I tried to foster discussion asynchronously in the classroom is just to use your basic bulletin board or discussion board. But the twist to this was students developed the questions for the discussion board. They read chapter material, they read other assignment resources, and then they asked their own questions. And so this way it gave them a creative input into the learning process, helped them decide what was most meaningful to them, and then debate that back with their students, fellow students. And again, that was rotated each week. So you can see how it starts to elicit really good responses from people. Here we're talking about President Obama and the gap between rich and poor is a bigger threat to the economy. And 85% of richest people hold the world's wealth. These are things that are important to them as students, hot topics in the news. And as they start to work with these ideas now and draw from different perspectives, they'll be better able to deal with them when they get out of college and high school as well. So this is a harken back to the live tweet event that I talked about. Students came up with an event that they wanted to tweet. They created a pitch. This basically follows a marketing scheme where professional marketers will go through this routine. They will pitch an idea for a story to their editor or manager. They created their own hashtags, and they got to become journalists out in the field. And in this example was for the Nearly Naked Mile event, where people run in the winter for charity. As I mentioned before, this worked really great in some cases, but not everybody's hashtag, even if formatted correctly, came up. So I had to find another way outside of just going and searching for the tags that to verify students actually had performed the activity. Okay, that was a little weird. So that's really the basic outline I have. I mean, honestly, I could have probably come up with 60 slides for this today. Most all of the things that I've talked about are worked into the research that I do, the articles that I've done in the last 3 or 4 years. Let me turn around and face people here. Now, I know I'm going to have to switch this. So, raise your hand if you have any questions. Christy, any questions at all? Can you hear me down here? They say you have to have your microphone set in a certain way. So I kind of wanted to walk around and see who's out here. I've never seen people's avatars. They look really good. I'll tell you, the first time that I did this, I set myself up like this in a purple tuxedo. When I logged back in, I was an African-American woman in a blue dress. Don't mind either way, but I was really surprised. This has been a great opportunity. It looks like the sessions are running pretty quick. Does anybody have any questions about what I do or how this fits in an institutional level? I know a lot of changes are going on with people moving to Google Apps at their universities and schools. Anything at all? Nope. Well, if you have any questions, my information's here on the board. Feel free to contact me anytime at this email address. I think I found a good way to get rid of the screens. Oh, here. Well, thank you for your time.